Hey, kings and queens, royal people, this is Queen Ari. Welcome to Empower Me with Ari. We have an amazing episode today and a very, very special guest. I like to introduce this very special lady. She is a woman that wears many hats, but she's very successful at it. She's rooted and grounded in her faith, and she doesn't allow anything to stop her from moving forward. Today, we're going to talk about being married, now what? And family balance and success. You know, it's most women's dreams, men too, but it's most women's dreams to be married. But after the wedding, you don't really hear a lot about that. You don't really hear about the post ceremony and what it entails. But we're going to dive in today with this, okay? So welcome, Ms. Keisha Johnson. Thank you for your time and being on the show today. Can you introduce yourself more in depth? What's your story and where are you from?
Well, hello. Long time overdue, I guess.
Right.
So I'm Keisha Johnson. I've known Ari for a while. We were friends way back when. And then we found out we actually relocated to the same state. The same year even.
How wow.
So I'm originally from Chicago. That's where I was born. Really, really terrible parts of Chicago. And I relocated as a child to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I grew up. So now I'm here in sunny Arizona.
Sunny Arizona.
Yeah. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. An entrepreneur, a career woman, I guess. Whatever it is I'm doing in my career. So
right.
Just wearing a lot of different hats, trying to figure it all out like probably most everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And she's doing a very good job at it, you guys. She really, really is.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So super excited about this. So let's start with the post life after the ceremony and the I do. Can you tell us how long have you been married? What were the differences from pre-ceremony to post-ceremony? Were there major differences?
Yeah. So I've been married 13 years this past June.
Congratulations.
As a lot of people who know me, they know I've been with my husband since I was a teenager. So we've actually been dating for 21 years. And I guess the post-ceremony stuff, there's a lot that changes, number one. I was with my husband for so long, so it wasn't too much that kind of shocked me post-marriage. But I will say, I do remember when I was younger and before, my husband and I, we actually lived together for like a year and a half before we got married. And it was like right when I went off to college, and I just wanted to be closer to school. I was taking like 3 buses to get to school every day. I couldn't afford to stay in the dorms. And so I just remember sitting down with my husband's brother, because he lived with his brother and I was just about to move out of my house or at home with my parents.
Yeah.
And he goes, "You guys are just so excited to see each other. Every day you wake up and you're like, oh, you're going to go and do something." He's like, "Yeah, when you move in, that's going to change. You're going to wake up and be like, I'm ready to do something without you because you see him." And I'm looking at him like, yeah, no, that's not going to be us. And sure enough, the first year we're boyfriend, girlfriend, and I was just like, okay, where are my friends? Gotta get up and do something. And so I will say, I think for people who, because then we moved apart for like 2 years while we were engaged and stuff like that, and then we moved in together again after marriage. But I will say that's probably the biggest change is your motives are different. You're happy to see each other every day, go home, everything's separate, and then now it's like you're here, so you're trying to
that's so interesting. That brings up in a point or whatever that you hear about a lot. So this is why it's so important to make sure that you are compatible and that this is your purpose partner, because the so-called honeymoon stage that we hear about so often, you hear people that have gotten married, and then they talk about the honeymoon stage. It ends, as far as you want your time, to yourself and this and that, and kind of have that balance. So that's why I believe it's imperative for people to take their time, like you took your time. You guys took your time. You've known each other forever, but it's, it's so important not to rush into something and to make sure that who you are connecting with, who you are saying you want to spend the rest of your life with, is really a God purpose partner, you know?
Yes,
So
yes, I do agree.
Yeah, that's amazing. So having experience with what you just said, having experienced what you have today, would you have prepared any differently?
I definitely would not have planned a wedding in my last 2 years of undergrad. That was chaos.
Wow.
I actually graduated one weekend and we got married the next weekend.
Wow.
So that wasn't that smart. I mean, it was smart because I'm like on this timeline. So like ever since I was little, I'm like, I'm doing everything before I turn 30. I'm gonna get married, have kids, finish school, be in my career. Like that's been my whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so he proposed when I was a junior in college.
Okay.
This was like, I don't know, he proposed before and it was kind of like, will you marry me? No ring kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, you're not married. But then when he did propose, I'm like, okay, well, I can't get married till I graduate college. And he's like, that's like 2 years. I'm like, yeah. Because I just have this fear of like, if I get married, I won't finish. Or if I, you know, I didn't want to, I was just trying to do things in a certain order. And as you'll find out, everything doesn't go in my order. God's order.
Right.
But I'm like, yeah, I had my first kid when I'm like 25 and all that stuff. So I definitely probably wouldn't have put so much pressure on myself to do things because it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, I'm very driven, so a lot of it did happen before 30.
Yeah.
Well, everything happened before 30.
Yeah.
But then it was kind of like, okay, now I'm 30, now what?
Right. I've done it all.
And so every time it changes. So I think that that's probably one thing I would do differently, not be so locked into this time frame because it's really not about our time. It's, you know, God's timing is best.
Yeah, that's so good because that kind of takes the pressure off, you know, single people, unmarried people, even if they're dating or engaged, just to understand that things are not going to always go as you plan. But you are a living witness that they turn out the way that God plans with, you know, with you still having your degrees, with you still having the successes that you have in life, even when things didn't go 100% the way that you know, thought they would. And so it's a beautiful thing when we can be like, I do want to be in control, but okay, God, you know, I will flow with you and just go, you know, because it's sometimes it's the hardest thing. And I know recently, like he was just sharing with me, where he gave me the kind of like the revelation. He's like, listen, when I give you a promise, when I tell you something, guess what? I've seen the end to the beginning. I've seen the end of your life. And, you know, and so what you see right now is just the moment where you're at. Everything's going to work out that it's the way that it's supposed to, but you have to go through that process to get there. So it's just like learning to just, okay.
Yeah.
But that's,
and I will say this too, a lot of women or people in general, like having that timeline and making sure that it's true to you. Like, why are you trying to do all these things by this time? Or who said you need to have this by this time?
That's so
and so if it's not really what you want, you can do all those things and be unhappy because you weren't doing it because it was something you wanted to do. You're trying to live up to standards of whoever, you know what I mean? And so that for me, I know that's always important for me to talk about when I speak to either young women or I'm mentoring anybody, is like, do it for you, because I promise you IG is not what it looks like.
Oh, wow. That's some golden advice. If it's not for you,
it's unnecessary struggle, pain, stress.
Yeah.
Unnecessary. You know.
That is so good. That's so good, Keisha. I'm happy that you mentioned that. So I do want to ask, what took the biggest adjustment after the wedding, and how long did it take you, you know, to get over this adjustment? What would you say?
I will say that it's probably knowing your spouse and how much like their background or how they were raised play a role in everything.
Wow.
I mean, everything from just roles around the house, from how they look at things, how they even see the marriage. I think for me that was the biggest adjustment, because I had my background, you know, my parents been married now 36 years and grew up in church, and
right.
his family were, they weren't in church. They were married. His parents got a divorce like right after he graduated high school. And just even the dynamics of how, you know, our different ways of being raised played a role in our marriage. And so it was like different things that we do around the house. You know, I did things because my mom did things. You know, he would do certain things because either his dad did not or did do certain things.
Wow.
You know? And so it's just really understanding how much that plays a role in it.
Wow.
It's probably the biggest adjustment.
Wow, that's really good. That is really good. So kind of going, you know, talking about or staying in the same vein, what would you say the biggest differences that you've noticed with men and women, or husbands and wives, you know, now that you're married? Like, was there like a big thing, a moment where you were like, oh my gosh, like they are just totally different, and like, you know what I mean? Like, what can you tell us to prepare us?
The biggest difference is, and I can't even say like in general, because I feel like I said before, it's like how they were raised or your background or your family plays so much into like why you do things the way you do, the way you do things. But I will say, after having kids is when I noticed the difference between a man and a woman.
Wow.
Because the way we parent is very different.
Okay.
The way we things that are like really, really important to me.
Right.
It's like, oh, they're kids, you know. So it's just very different, the motherly aspect of things. I see that the biggest roles as far as men and women there.
Yeah.
But other things outside of just like children, as far as men and women, I really feel like it depends on, you know, where they come from. Because you'll see some men who are intimidated if a woman like makes more than them, or they feel like there's certain roles around the house, that chores that people should do, where like my cleanliness comes from the way I was raised. I'm like, we washed walls, you know. He's looking like, what? You know, he was an only child. For a while. There's a huge difference with him and his brother as far as age, and so there was a big chunk of time where he was the only kid, and he has younger siblings and stuff now. But for me, it was just all four of, you know, my mom's kids and us, and we're really close in age, and there was never a moment where I'm just like, oh, I didn't do that, I don't do that. Like, we did everything. My brother washed dishes just like he took out the trash, and vice versa.
Wow, I love that.
Different, you know. It's how you're raised. I feel like that's probably the biggest piece, and knowing that about whoever it is you decide to spend your life with, I think more important than anything is knowing, you know, their background, their family, and that sort of thing.
Wow, I'm gonna have to do some checks and double checks. Like, hold on, wait, let me pump the brakes. Let me pump the brakes. Let me pump the brakes just a little bit so I can make sure that I'm getting prepared correctly. So, I mean, that's some really good advice that you said, like that being the most important thing. What would some other advice be for someone that is engaged, that's single, that's unmarried? What would you say to them as far as how to prepare, or, you know?
I would probably say the same. It kind of goes back to family. I think for me, especially like with my husband, again, we've known each other for a long time. But I don't think that even for me, it just kind of clicked, like, this is the person you're going to be with, until I saw how he treated his mom.
Wow.
And so for me, I would say to any like single woman, you know, how he treats his mother or the women in his life is a huge indication of how he's going to treat you.
Wow.
And then for the guys, vice versa. If, you know, dad not being around, father issues, things like that, you want to know that stuff. You want to know how she talks to the men in her life. Is there honor? Is there respect? You know, those kind of things really tells you how that person's going to treat you. Right. And so I think that that's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give, because I have not seen it fail.
That is so
Some people, they'll see those dynamics and be like, oh, he's so disrespectful to his mom. And then, you know,
wonder why, like,
married, and they're like,
he showed you
this.
Right.
Like, well,
he showed you
that, you know?
Right. He showed you himself when he
problem then, you know. So it's just a lot of that stuff. It's just like it really does play a role in some, and I'm not saying that that's the end all. Like, if they're disrespectful, they're going to disrespect you. But a lot of it is, if it is a moment where that happens, and a man who really has that respect for a woman he can come back and correct it, or he works on that relationship. And so those kind of things I think that women should really pay attention to, men should really pay attention to, because I've seen, you know, women disrespect men and have little boys and disrespect them, and they get in a relationship and the guy's like, she is something else. I'm like,
right.
I mean,
oh my goodness. I so want to go to this next question. I don't want to throw us off. Oh my goodness. No, I so want to go to listen, I kind of want to ask. So talking about, you know, talking about how a person was raised, what do you think, or how involved do you think your husband's family should be, or the wife's family should be within the marriage? Do you think they should be very involved, or do you think like, no, you should independently, you know, like if you're having issues, what goes on stays within this house and we figure this thing out together? Or, you know, how involved? Because once again, it could be, like you said, how somebody was raised. Like if they're used to telling their mom or dad everything, you know, and having no boundaries, that could potentially bring issues. What are your thoughts about that? You could just briefly say something. So
I have a lot of opinions about it. No, I was just gonna say it really boils down to what type of marriage you and your spouse decide to set. So I always hear the whole, and it bugs my soul, like especially people in church. They're like, oh my gosh, when you get married, keep everybody out of your business. And that could be interpreted like 50,000 different ways.
Right.
And so it's not about like having them in your marriage where they have an opinion and they have something to say, or they can talk to your spouse any kind of way. I do think it's important to have healthy relationships. So like someone in the family, you know, that you can go to, or if something messes up. So like for us, my husband and I know if there's anything that he does this out of character, or anything that, you know, in our marriage that may fall apart, I know who in his family I could go to and talk to that's going to help him.
Wow.
So it's not about me telling people, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did this. Let me call my mom. Let me call my dad. But then there's people on my side of the family that I know I can talk to, my sister, my younger sister, one of them, that will just help me kind of ground myself. Like, you know what? And so it goes away from like keeping her out of my business, but like knowing who to talk to, because that is more important than anything. It's not about like every time something goes on, you're going to tell everybody, because then 9 times out of 10 you stay with the person,
right?
Know your business, like you still with such and such.
Listen, that's
so
really
it's
good.
A different dynamic. It's not about you know, telling everything, but just having some sort of mentor or support that you know is helpful. You don't want the person who's gonna be like, leave, girl.
Right.
You like,
right. Right. Let me bring this back.
That's your advice. Why is that?
Listen, and they single on the other end. That's some really, really good advice. Thank you for answering that. So let's just kind of go here. So what was the biggest adjustment, or how was the adjustment when you did start a family? Was it super hard? I know you said that's when you seen like some major differences or whatever, or was it pretty easy?
Starting was, again, that was probably one of the biggest shifts, because my son was a surprise.
Wow.
Like, we literally got married. We got pregnant 6 months into our marriage. So,
wow. Oh.
And I wasn't 25. So, you know, my plan is not God's plan. To the point where I even told the doctor, she's like, well, congratulations. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not 25 yet.
Right. Wow, that's funny.
So that was an adjustment, because we had like bought our house. We bought a townhouse.
Okay.
And it took like right before we got married, I'm like, I want to get a house and we're going to move in and whatever. And it was a 3-level townhome. So imagine being pregnant and you come in on the basement level, and then you got to go up to the main levels, and there's another level. I was just like, what were we thinking? And then after we had our son, we ended up buying a new house within like less than a year, because I'm like, I can't have a toddler or baby, it's just nothing but stairs. So a lot of the decisions that I made based on how I saw things, you know, or we saw things at the time, it changed so quick, where it was like, oh, we have to think about space. We have to think about stairs. We got to think about backyards. Like a townhouse, you don't have no outdoor maintenance.
Right.
And we ended up moving in this big front yard where my husband had to cut grass and shovel leaves and snow when we were in Minnesota. So I think a lot of the adjustments were really trying to make decisions more long term.
Okay.
When you start a family versus the right now.
Okay.
And even now, like it's always the long term, 3 to 5 years. Like, what are we doing next? 3 to 5 years. How old will the kids be? You know, it's kind of like planning differently instead of always trying to do the right now. Like right now, this makes sense, and it could change in 6 months. Like that's
wow,
the best decision.
Right.
It could always change. Kids grow too fast.
That's wisdom. That's
always changing.
Yes, that's some really, really good wisdom. And so you kind of answered this. So we'll kind of about the gender roles while parenting. What are your beliefs? Do you believe like women should rear the children more, or do you believe there should be a healthy balance? You know, when it comes to marriage, or does it just depends on the marriage, what the husband
really
and wife
does.
think? Okay.
Because I would say in a perfect world, a healthy balance. You know, I did the dishes today. You can do the dishes tomorrow.
Right.
You know, the kids need baths. I did it yesterday. You can do it tonight. It's not like that. Ever.
Yeah.
I find to care like overly too much. And so I really feel like, and I've learned, you know, you pick your battles. So I have a cleaning schedule.
Okay.
It's the best idea ever. Although everybody don't follow it, but I got tired of kind of like always asking my husband to help out, and like really early in our marriage, I would get mad. Like I'd be cleaning, and they'll like watch me clean, and I'm like, really? Like you see me tired, nobody's helping, and so it got to the point where it was like annoying to always be like, well, you need to help me do this, or you saw me doing it, I wouldn't ask, and now it's kind of like, well, that's stupid. Like it's an unnecessary argument. Like this is what I need help with.
Wow.
And it's not like he's gonna be like, no, I'm not helping. Like he'll be like, okay, but him helping is different from what I would do. His timing of when he helps is different. So this cleaning schedule has been my whole life. I like have days and everything is on there, so they don't have to ask me what I need help with. It's
right,
on the
just
refrigerator. And my kids are old enough, so I'm like, it's Tuesday, clean the bathroom, pick one, clean it.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
So, it really is the marriage, because I do know marriages where the guy is the one who kind of takes care of a lot of stuff. Again, back to how they were raised. My brother does a lot of stuff, but it's kind of how we were raised, you know. And so it's really about having that communication and knowing what works and picking your battles.
That's so good. That is so good. Like the picking your battles. I'm telling you, it's feeding me, and I know it's going to help everybody that's listening to it. No, but really learning to pick your battles and learning how to say things, you know, because you said at first you were like, you know, thinking, well, nobody's helping me, this or that. No one wants to hear anybody nag, but the way, you know what I mean? But the way we present it, the way we ask, hey, do you mind doing this? And sometimes they just don't know, you know, they see and it's like, okay, I guess she's good.
Unspoken expectations. It's like, oh, I know what I expect. And if you don't get it, then you're the problem, you know.
Isn't that something?
You never said anything.
Right. And that finger goes right back at us like, actually, I was the problem the whole time. That is so good. That's golden. That's some really good advice. With all this advice, I'm interested in some relationships, some marriage classes and stuff like that.
I know.
I could do the dating part, class on dating, but I want to hear the classes about marriage and stuff like that. That. So you're gonna have to go ahead and create something so that we can chime in, because this is really, really, really good. So so we kind of talked about this when it comes to, and you know, you briefly mentioned something earlier about this. Some men have issues with women that make more money than them, and some men actually stay at home more and the woman works. I want to ask you, when you had your kids, were you trying to just do you believe it's good to sit out with them for an extended period of time, a year or two, or no, it just depends on the situation again? Do you think that
it really, I personally feel like it depends on the woman.
Okay.
Because I was very strong, still am, you know, like if I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I even tried to control when my son was born. I'm like, you told me August 10th. I got a hair appointment. I went to work. I locked my computer. I'm like, I'll be back. Drove myself.
No!
Just like in complete whatever. And my pregnancy was like a piece of cake. Like nothing went wrong. It was just like great. And then I took off what do they give you? Like 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Or 8 weeks. I can't remember. 6 weeks. And I took the 6 weeks. You know, I could take up to 12. Most people were taking like 8. I'm like, oh no, I got this. Went back to work. I was a hot mess, y'all.
Oh.
Hot mess. I actually suffered from postpartum depression with both my kids.
Wow.
And it happened at different times with both. And so because I had the postpartum with my son, when I had my daughter, I took the whole 12 weeks.
Okay.
And so I would say to women, it's really about knowing yourself and listening to your body, because you could think it's all good,
right?
And it's not all good.
Yeah.
And I was like the last person to be like, depression. I didn't even think a postpartum depression was real. Like, because my pregnancy was so easy. I'm like, I ain't had no throwing up. Like, y'all talking about all this stuff.
Listen.
Like, y'all just making up stuff. And then that hit me, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. Like, you can have God, you can have the foundation, you can have all these things, but this is real mental stuff that people go through, that whole, you know, dropping your kid off. And I was working at home some days then, so I wasn't even away from my son 5 days a week, but that depression was there. And so it's about having that conversation, you know, with your spouse and listening to your body and knowing, like, you know, what's best for you. If you feel like you need to be home and spend that time with that child, then do that. But that conversation has to be had. I wouldn't recommend anybody ignore it or they try again to live up to someone else's expectations.
Right.
Because they're very different. Every pregnancy is different. Every child is different. Every marriage is different.
Yeah.
You know, it's always going to be
so good,
customized to you and your relationship, because there is no blanketed, you know.
This is so good. This is so good. We need to hear this. Everybody needs to hear this. Unmarried people and married people. Because a lot of times, I'm trying to tell you, a lot of times we think everything is cookie cutter. Oh, I see this, I want that. And you see, you know, on social media or whatever, you think, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And no, you have to make sure what, you know, with what you're doing in your marriage works for your marriage. And if you need that extra time off, take that time off. You don't have to have a snapback 9-week picture like, look, you know.
Listen, I ain't snapped back yet, y'all. My daughter is 9.
Yeah.
I'm so over this.
I haven't snapped back yet, girl. You are beautiful.
I don't got that team.
She said, I ain't sat back yet, y'all. That's funny. Listen here. But it's so realistic, and this is what we need to hear. You know, everybody don't have that team to snap back and you look just like you did before you push anything out. You know, so this is really, really good stuff that I think everybody needs to pay attention to. I'm over here taking notes. You know, I'm kind of taking it kind of fast. I may not be able to read it, but we're gonna work it out. So I kind of want to just, you know, kind of skip up a little bit, and I want to ask you, since we're talking about family, I want to talk about kids. Like, when do you believe that it's time to speak to your kids about their purpose in life? You know, when do you, I mean, is it a time where it's too early, or what do you think?
Never too early.
Okay.
You can start speaking about purpose while they in your belly. Like,
that's good.
They hear, they know, you know what I mean?
So
for me, I feel like I've always talked to my kids about that. And I feel like a lot of it is, with the way they're growing up, like the era in which they're growing up is so much pressure. I feel like with all of the technology to be a certain way, to act a certain way. And I'm always trying to like just build their own confidence. Just real quickly, my son, like he just tried out for the basketball team. Very first time. He's played basketball, but he's played like club ball where we kind of knew people. So he's on the team and he played like park and, you know, so it's not really like a tryout per se. So this is his first tryout, and his first day he comes home and he's like, so-and-so's gonna make it, and so-and-so did this. And I'm like, well, how'd you do? And he's like, I missed a couple shots. And I said, well, you know that making shots won't get you on the team. And like, yeah. And I was like, but why are you telling me about other people? I'm like, because that's not your job. Like, it's not your job to go and see who's doing what. I was like, that's actually the coach's job. Yeah. And I'm like, well, your job is to do the best you can do and listen and do your best. Like, you shouldn't even know what everybody else is doing because you're so like,
that is so good.
Doing. And so just trying to build his confidence, because he's looking at, you know, people miss shots or make shots. And then I could see his confidence kind of diminishing because he's so focused on other people.
Wow.
And so I'm always telling him like, hey, you can do whatever you want to do. Just make sure you're doing it because you actually want to do it and not because it's what other people expect you to do. Or even me, you know, I'm telling him to do a certain thing, you know, don't do it because I said. I mean, school is not an option. You just have to do school, but other than that, you know, like it's all about you, because otherwise you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. You're going to push yourself into a career. You're going to push yourself into a group of friends. If you don't want to be friends with someone, you don't have to be friends with someone. Like it's just that simple. If they make you feel a certain way, it's okay to say something and separate yourself. That's perfectly fine.
That's
but long
so
story
good.
short, he made the team.
Yeah.
When he got home, he was so nervous. So the whole ride home, he's like, I'll just open it when I get home. And he's just so like down on himself. And I'm like, Che, I was like, whether you make it or not, like you did the best you could have done. Like you practiced, you focused on you. And I was like, it's not about shots, it's about being teachable. You know, like if they see that you are listening to their direction and you're doing it, that's what a coach cares about, you know. And he made the team. He
oh, that is amazing. Oh my goodness, that is so
important.
Good.
He's 12 and I'm like, dude, just do you. He changes hair every week. It drives me insane. But that's like,
how cute. Oh my goodness. No, that right there, you really dropped some golden nuggets for everybody to hear. That is so important though, seriously, because you have all the peer pressure. The kids have so much peer pressure around them, and everybody want to be, even the people on TV or this and that, and they don't a lot of times pay attention to the inner voice. They don't pay attention to their drive, their desires, and then they're not satisfied, even at a young age, you know, and they're just doing things because other people are doing it. And so that's absolutely amazing that you are instilling this and the morals and instilling, you know, these values and these truths into your kids at this age. So I commend you for that. That is wonderful.
Oh, thank you. It's real parenting now.
Yes,
it's
real
like
parenting.
Cute little, oh, they're so cute. It's like, oh wait, I got to talk to you.
Right.
We got to deal with some stuff.
Yes. So that's your second class, Real Parenting 1-on-1, where you come with the authentic. So I'm gonna be signing up for that one too. So I want to ask you, goodness, knowing that you do so much, how do you keep balance with family, with working, with being an entrepreneur, all this stuff? How do you keep balance?
God, you already know. I make sure that I'm in church. That is like, I could be doing 50,000 different things, but I'm always like, okay, that gets me back on track. Like put things in perspective. So I will say that's the biggest thing. I do not have it all together, but thank you for thinking that. I change my mind all the time about all kinds of things. And so I feel like having a foundation is key. And definitely like even my husband and I, we constantly talk. We constantly we have marriage meetings. We talk about this at one of the marriage meetings every Thursday.
I love it.
I have dates with my kids. So
that is so
my daughter had our day, you know, this weekend. My son and I had our day last Wednesday. So it's like just making time. And they'll tell me like if I go a few weeks where I haven't like went to Jamba Juice and sat down with one of them and just talked, you know, they were like, when we getting our Sunday.
Oh, I love it.
When are we gonna have our mommy daughter day? So it's just like trying to be intentional about those things. And I do not keep on top of it as much as I could, but they hold me accountable.
That's
My husband
good.
will definitely hold me accountable. That's why I had a day off. He's like, you need to take a day off. We're going to do something.
That's so good.
Just making sure that you do it, you know,
and
not try to do so much and be everything to everybody, and you're not making time for the people or the things that are important. So that's been really how I keep balance, is that accountability from them.
That's so good. That is so good. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. And you know, definitely, I'm so serious about you guys doing more, you know, videos or just some type of classes on this, because what we talked about, I'm not going to share everything, but the part where you have the communication and you guys are authentic and intentional, and like every week, like, listen, okay, so this is that, and that is beyond dope. That is like wisdom. That's Solomon. You know what I mean? That it is, because a lot of times people go through life silent, and issues just, you know, they fester, and before you know it, somebody's blowing up, and divorces happen and all that. But being intentional about, we're gonna have this day where we're gonna talk to each other, and you tell me this or I can tell you this, and not judge each other within that moment, but be just authentic and just say, well, what do you think we can do? That is, listen. So, and I'm just talking about bits and pieces of it, but I really
it's important. And I think for us, because we did talk about the marriage meetings, we still have the marriage meetings every day or every week, and making sure they don't become redundant. You know, that's been the biggest challenge. And I think, like, even recently I mentioned to my husband how he would get angry, but I know him. So even when he tries to hide his anger, I know. And it could be small things. And so we talked about it one week, and then I noticed over the next week, he's been like, he was checking himself.
That's dope.
But then I was like, okay, I see that he's mad. He's not like blowing up like over a stupid like little thing.
Right.
But then we had to have the marriage meeting about like, okay, I don't want you like suppressing your anger. Like, wait a minute. You know, like, I don't want you to be like, I'm not going to get angry, but inside you're like still angry.
Blowing up,
no,
right.
I know. I just thought about it and I'm not as mad, but I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure we're not like, trying to just act like it's not a big deal, you know, that kind of thing. So even that little stuff is like, okay, wait, I think I said that last week, but you took it differently. I don't want you to like change your whole who you are.
Right, exactly. That's so good. That is so good, because a lot of times we go into situations, dating situations or relationships, whatever it is, thinking that we can ultimately change people, and that's the biggest misconception. We cannot change anyone but ourselves with God's help. And so, oh my goodness, that right there will save somebody all the time in the world. So, okay. And so we're just gonna kind of jump to the next thing. So this subject is, I'm really interested in this. So what do you believe about spending time with outside friends and friends of the opposite sex? Do you think, like, you know, your husband should have female friends that he can hang out with separately without you? You know, people that he's known for a long time. Do you think that that's okay? Or what are your thoughts about that? And what are your thoughts about that? Period.
Lots of thoughts again. No.
Yeah, she's got lots of thoughts.
I know, I have lots and lots of thoughts. No, honestly, so my husband and I have the luxury of knowing each other for forever. So we do have the same friends, a lot of the same friends from childhood, you know. So that hasn't really been an issue, but obviously a discussion that you have to have. And so for us, because I can't say this works for everybody, but for us, there are no friends of the opposite sex that you're hanging out with separate from me. There aren't friends that you have that I don't have. I mean, that's just how we roll, you know. But I do think it's healthy, and you can't really control as far as like single friends versus married friends.
Right. Okay.
That changes. I mean, my husband, one of his best friends was married, and his wife passed away, unfortunately, and he got remarried, and but there was a time when he was single. I can't be like, oh, you can't hang out with him, he's single now. Like, that's just not
logical, right? Right.
It's just not. I have a lot of friends who are single.
Right.
I have married friends as well, and so I think it's healthy to have single friends. It's healthy for both. It's healthy for your single friends, and it's healthy for married couples.
Yeah.
Because you get that different perspective. I think a lot of times someone who's single, who kind of knows what's going on out there,
right.
And then even married couples, there's things that you see in certain people that you're like, yeah, I don't think you want that.
That's so good.
I do think it's important, and your friends are your friends. Like that, most likely it doesn't change that much. So whether they're married 1 year, divorced another year, never got married, have kids, never have kids, like that friendship is just a different type of friendship. It doesn't make them not a friend or more of a friend or anything like that. So
yeah, that's good.
That's healthy.
That's really good. And so do you all, I know, but do you all, I want to ask the question, do you all find yourself mentoring mentoring a lot of unmarried people or even married people? Do you find yourself in that position or situation?
We definitely mentor a lot of married people, probably not intentionally. I think we just both have friends who call us for advice a lot of the times, or they hang out with us and they're like, oh, you guys are really cool, and can I call you? Whatever. So I think that happens naturally. And you know my husband, he's very like, his friends is his friends, he's on the stretch, he's not doing the most. And so I did ask him, I was like, how do you feel about mentoring, single people, married people? He was like, yeah, I might be open, to the idea. But, it's not something that we've tried to do intentionally, I should say. So we do, especially, I know I do a lot of mentoring to couples, finances and stuff like that, budgeting. And then just like wives, and I do mentor a lot of single people, but mostly like young adults, like young teenagers and young adults. And so that's something that we definitely feel like we should do, because like a lot of other parts of our lives, we're always pouring back into people and making sure that, they don't make the same mistakes we did when it comes to just finances and marriage and things like that. And so I feel like we probably should focus on something like that.
Yeah, seriously. I think it would be really, really fruitful for you guys to do that, especially having over 10 years, over 10 years of being married. And that's not accounting since how long you've known each other. You've known each other forever. But you know what I mean? And so, right, forever. So did you have a mentor? Did you have a mentor before?
I did. It's so crazy. So my mentor was Amy Raspberry. They'll probably hear this, and Jamel Raspberry. And I actually have known them since middle school, and they're now my kids' like godparents. But they've mentored so many kids. Like the majority of my adult friends now, we are all connected because of them.
Wow.
And I think that they don't realize like the impact that they had on a lot of us in the inner city, and just how they kind of took us under their wing and made sure that we were involved and engaged. And for me, even helping me even get through college, I was the broke college student, and I was on the bus and they're like, here, take the car. And so it was just like, I didn't realize the impact until I was an adult. And after I saw how they were with my kids, I was just kind of like, they don't really realize how much of an impact they had. So definitely have mentors. I think that's important. Like even for my kids, making sure they have someone outside of me that they can talk to.
That's good.
About whatever is important. And I had great parents. It's not like they weren't there. But my parents were very, very strict. And so Amy and Jamel kind of helped me even just have a life outside of church. But no, I think that's important. I definitely had that. And there's different people just throughout my life, and, at church and at work, that just kind of influenced me in different ways. And
that's good.
Making sure that I kind of take those little nuggets and apply them how I need to for me.
That's good. So I want to ask this question, then we're going to jump into this next thing. So do you believe, what do you believe constitutes a successful, healthy marriage? And do you believe that counseling is a good thing? to go to a counselor, therapist for children, for marriage, just all over. Because you just talked about them having a mentor. Mentors, counselors are kind of, within the same vein. So,
a healthy marriage is it's customized. There's no blanket, this is what a healthy marriage looks like. It's really about knowing your spouse. I know my husband and we are so big on personal goals.
That's good.
But I have my goals, he has his goals, we have our goals.
That's so good.
That is probably the biggest thing for us that I feel like helped us be successful. I was very intentional, again, about what I wanted to do before I was 30. I'm very intentional about all the different things I'm working on now that I want to do by a certain time frame. Even going to school, just the patience of like, okay, if that's what you're wanting to do that. And he finished his master's later, his own time when he wanted to do it.
Right.
And so just constantly having those conversations, I feel like is the healthiest thing you can do. And then you customize from there, because if you can't go in and take like what you think and then just, that's what it is, and vice versa. And then you can't just have your own personal goals and you guys don't have anything you're trying to accomplish together either.
That's so good. That is so good. So being intentional about where you're headed individually and collectively. That's really, really, really good. Keeping that identity, individualism, and having that unity or whatever as a couple is really important. Sometimes people lose themselves. You know what I mean? Once they get married and they're just like, I don't even know who I am or what I'm supposed to be doing. So having those personal goals, like you just talked about, that is so good. That's imperative. And then you have something more to bring to the table, something, and then you guys can build together, build an empire up together. So that's really, really, really good advice. So I want to just talk about success, then we're going to wrap this up. You're a very intelligent woman. Someone has her educational credentials on lock, you guys. This woman has it together in your leadership roles and so much more. Can you tell me, and I know you talked about your personal goals, like you have personal goals and you, you kind of knew what you wanted to accomplish. Like, was there a specific way or a specific path that you took to get to where you are today? Or was it literally just having those personal goals saying, I want to accomplish this and I'm gonna figure out a way to accomplish it? So what would you tell people that are, that are kind of in a space where they're like, well, I know what I want to do, I just don't know kind of how to do it, and if that's being an entrepreneur, and how did you do it? What would you tell somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of it was trial and error. Because I originally, like, my undergrad's in like business management. I didn't know what I was doing with that. I just knew I wanted to do some type of business, and I got a job right after undergrad. I was already working in the job, but I got a promotion, and then it was more like IT focused. So I'm doing all this IT stuff, and I'm like, well, why didn't I go to school for this? Like, this makes sense, And in that, I found myself mentoring a lot of people, which I kind of do naturally. And so now I'm like, oh, I want to be a teacher. That's just what I want to do. And I went back and got my master's in education. And like, I don't know, a month before the program was about to end, I was like, I can't do this. This is not, I found myself caring too much. I'm buying kids coats and throwing parties because I just felt bad. And my husband's like, if you're a teacher, we're going to be broke. Like, we're going to adopt kids. Like, it was just like, I can't, like, Lord knows I can't do this. And so even just going through that whole program, and then this is not even the career I want to do. I knew I liked IT. I knew I was really good at just managing stuff, and I love working with people. And so I was like, I'm gonna do human resources. And I enrolled literally in the next master's program for human resources.
Wow.
Do I work in human resources? No. I actually do like project management, IT work. I'm a director now, but it's still like nothing to do with anything I went to school for. So I feel like it's more about consistency than it is about knowing what you want to do. because you'll learn what you're good at. Like, I know what I'm good at.
Wow.
And it's a matter of me trying to figure out how to take everything that I'm good at and mash it into like one thing. And right now I feel like I've kind of found my niche.
Yeah.
But again, it's so broad. It can go any direction. I got my PMP and started doing project management stuff, but I love design. So I'm like, oh, yes. I can help someone manage a whole project if they want to remodel their house. You know,
right.
Project management, it's what I love. It's working with people. So I don't feel like anybody will ever like know exactly this is what I was put on the earth to do. I feel like it's always changing, it's always evolving, and as long as you're consistent, you won't have regrets. Like if you're consistent, if you say I like doing this and you take that 10 years to do nothing about it, then you will have regret.
Wow.
But at least if you're working towards it, you know,
that's good
in some way, and if you find yourself on a path and it's like, oh, this wasn't really it, just move to the next thing.
That's so good. That is so good. Yeah, because a lot of times people can they could be so indecisive. They're like, well, I don't know what to do. They're afraid to make a move because they don't want to make a mistake. Yeah. But you're saying like, stay consistent, because if you stay consistent, you'll keep that momentum, and then you'll eventually figure out your niche. You'll eventually figure out, okay, this is where I'm supposed to go. This is, you know, like, God, continue to lead me. And you'll be successful at what God had put you on the planet to do. And like you said, it changes, and that's good. I mean, this goes with like scripturally as well, you know, about the talents, you know, the 3 men and the talents. You know, if you use what you have, then more things will be given to you. You know, you did teaching, or, you know, opened yourself up to be a teacher for a moment, then, you know, project management, now, you know, a director, you know, for IT and whatever other field that is. And it's because you're faithful and consistent with what you're doing. He's like, okay,
yeah. And you don't have regrets. It's kind of like, once that, if I decided I wanted to do something and I stay consistent at it, the worst thing that comes out of it is a master's degree. Like, who did I hurt? You know what I mean? So it's like, if I have something to fall back on, at least I got that, you know. But yeah, that is why I say, like, I had a cousin who was like, oh, I really want to be a nurse. I'm like, well, what's stopping you? She's like, it's just so long. Like, you'll be in school for so long. And she just kept talking about the long, you know, and I'm like, well, if you don't start, like, you're never going to finish. It's always going to be that amount of time. 6 years it's going to happen anyway. So I'm just like, just enroll, take one class at a time. And so she's just finishing up her associates or something like that.
Okay.
Like, she's 2 years in. And she's like, I just can't even believe I'm about to graduate. I'm like, just one class at a time.
Yes. That's
like,
so
you'll eventually get to where you want to be, and you'll learn something in the process. You might learn you don't want to be a nurse. Hopefully it's early enough where you can be like, I could use this to be a administrative assistant.
Exactly.
But you're not hurting anybody to have a degree or have credentials or try something, because you'll learn something about yourself even in that process. Like, you know, I thought I wanted to do this. I learned something. I learned that I didn't want to do it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. No, that's really good, because there's nothing worse than putting, like, you have your whole life, you know, lined up to do one thing, and you don't have a backup plan. You like, this is it. And then when you get the degree and stuff, you like, I hate this job. There's nothing worse than that. So being flexible.
Push it to the next.
Right. Push it to the next. Okay. What else? Well, I so thank you for being on here. Can you tell us, what do you have going on currently? You know, where can people connect with you at? Yes, let us know.
So I'm on Instagram, probably the most. So you can follow me on Instagram at I am Keisha DJ. Okay. At D as in diamond, DJ. I am not a DJ. I get so many people following me thinking like I do some kind of music stuff. I wish that I did music stuff. That is, you know.
It's so funny.
Long story. And then I'm on Facebook at Keisha Johnson, I believe. There's a lot of Keisha Johnsons, so if you're watching the video, this is my face.
She said, this is my face. There's only one face like this, y'all. So if you see that face.
But then I also have a design company that I launched, and I've been doing interior design forever, and I just keep getting the cold feet. Like, I'm telling everybody, I'm still working through it, you know, step out, do it. and be consistent. So I'm working on my consistency.
Yes.
So you can follow me on Instagram at We Heart Designing. And then I'm also on House. If you guys are familiar with House, you can find me on there. I'm one of their ambassadors for House. So I'm working on a lot of stuff.
Yes,
doing some home staging and designing some Airbnbs and helping people build their house. So realtors and things like that. If you need help, I can help. I've helped a lot of people sell homes in a couple days, even before we even put them on the market. So
yes, I love it.
What else do I have going on? I'm working on some classes. So I'm trying to launch some marriage finance classes and just helping people through kind of budgeting and even engage people before you get married, kind of what you're going to talk about when it comes to bills and how you'll manage the finances in your household, because that is a really, really high, there's a high rate in divorce. A lot of it has to do with finances. So I really wanted to kind of tackle that. I do have a few clients now, so I'm trying to just kind of get some structure around that before I launch it. So
love it. Yes, love it, love it, love it. Congratulations to everything that you recently started and that you are going to start. God is going to continually use you. You are such a giver, an encourager, and so God, He is, He's pleased with what you're doing. So keep moving forward, hon. You are needed.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You are so welcome.
Your podcast, so I'm all excited.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys, make sure that you tune in. Make sure you follow Mrs. Keisha Johnson. She gave you her handles. Go ahead. If you have questions, reach out to her. Realtors, business people, if you want to connect with her, do it, because she is somebody that is authentic and consistent in whatever, goal or whatever it is that you guys have. It will be manifested. So I'm a firm believer in that. I've seen her in production. So just with her life. But you guys yes, I see her live, Keisha live. But you make sure you go ahead and log on to Amazon. You can get my 2 books. The Loud Secret is on Amazon, and then the latest project, Singles Let's Deliberate. And I also have the fashion brand. You can follow me at Sweet Biscuit on the social media sites. I have the Queens Get Kings and the Kings Get Queens. We're talking about identity, value,
I should have wore my shirt.
Yes, you should have worn your shirt.
It's for
couples. I'm trying to tell you. Yes, we're talking about value, worth, knowing who you are. And when you know who you are, literally you won't settle for what's not for you. And you can move forward in life the way that God wants you to. So you guys, thank you for tuning in. Stay encouraged. And until next time, remember to renew your mind. It is the gold mine. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.